Hello everyone. Sire here. Thank you so much for joining me. I am here creating some cards using the new card kit for Love from Lizi's. This is the June 2026 card kit. It is full of wonderful bright colors. There are a lot of fruit, embellishments, and ephemera. And if you haven't seen the unboxing video, I do have that in my playlist if you would like to see what's inside the box. I will also put in the description where you can find this. I'm going to be creating 4 cards, and they're going to be focused mainly on the ephemera and the pattern paper. So these card kits do come with a lot of different pieces. So there's dies, there's stamps, there's papers, there's a lot of embellishments, and they change depending on the kits. And so there's a lot of things you can create using these. And so for these 4 cards, it'll be mainly focusing on the paper. And there's all the ephemera. There are some big fruit pieces and there's some small ones. So what I'm going to be trying to do is just create a cluster of fruit around the sentiments. And all of the sentiments on the stamp set are fruit punned. So you can see the one that I have here is just simply the zest. So obviously bananas aren't zesty, but as long as I get one zesty fruit in there, I think we're safe. But definitely you can do whatever you want. Just have some fun with it and creating some clusters. Now I'm also trying to create some really nice bold colors. So in the card kit, there are some cardstock that you get. So there's the yellow, there's a green that's absolutely beautiful, pink, purple, and then there's the white. So I'll be making my cards using these papers just to kind of show you what you can create with just the contents in the kit. So I got my sentiment all ready there, and I'm just going to mat that down to a piece of the purple cardstock. This is the easiest way because I did not measure the width of this square. In fact, this is just scrap white cardstock that I had, and I decided I would start with that, and I actually like the size of it. So we'll just glue that directly to the purple cardstock. And then what I like to do is when I have that paper trimmer, there's actually that guard that's supposed to protect your fingers from being snipped. If you use that as a ruler for where to trim, then if you keep that consistent with all sides, then you'll have an equal side. And that's what I did with that. So you can always rewind and check, or you can see what I do for the next ones and you'll see what I refer to. Okay, so there's my fruit cluster. I don't think I'm going to use the pineapple. It was a little too much. I just kind of liked it how it was just covering just the bottom and the right hand side there. That nice big apple, that looks absolutely delicious. One thing I would recommend when you're creating these cards, and I kind of forgot sometimes, is adding dimension to your ephemera, especially if you start layering on top of each other. That will help create some nice dimension and make it so that it doesn't look too flat. You could also ink the edges with, like, let's say vintage photo distress ink. I picked that one just because that's the one I use often if I do that. And that will create a distinction between them as well. What I've done is not wrong. It's just it does look flatter. So what I'm going to be doing as well is just adding some layers by adding some scrap cardstock. You can use foam squares, foam strips, those all work. There are benefits to using foam products because when you lay it down, it kind of is not so, how do I put it? It's not so heavy. Like if you have a big strip of cardstock strips, I find that the panel that you glue it on starts to warp a bit because it's just so much glue in one spot. If you ever use foam squares, I never find that to be because I think it's just the slightest bit of adhesion and that sticks. So if you are going to be doing scrap cardstock and you're layering, what I'm doing is I'm layering 2 to 3, then just make them skinnier, about 1/4 inch. Don't do a whole square. You might find that it might, depending on your cardstock, especially if your cardstock's not 100 pounds, it may start to warp it a bit in that area. Okay, so what I would have liked to have done, and this is where I was referring to, I didn't think about it, is that banana would have looked nice if it had just a bit of height above that lime. I think that would have made it look a little more polished, a little more better. Not that it's not good. I just think a little bit of dimension, getting that shadows in there really works well. All of these Love from Lizi products are add-on bundles that you can get for this month. And I'll put that in the description box below. And it comes in 4 colors. So you have the green diamonds, the purple hearts, that white in the background is stars, and it's like a translucent glitter. And then you have some yellow straight peel-offs. Now I already had these in my stash, so I put the new one into the stash and brought out the old one, because why start a new one when I can just reuse the ones that I already have started. And this is a very pretty color. It's like a lemon, very soft lemony color. And it is translucent and glittery, so it does get lost on the card a bit when you put it on there, because that background is quite bold. If it wasn't for that circle pattern, it definitely would be lost. So I'm also going to add 2 layers to this, and I'll show you in a second, but I'm just going to work my way through using the scraps. You don't need to use a brand new piece for these, because no one's going to see that it's not all the way straight through. And so I'm just going to tuck that all in, and then I'm going to double layer it just so it's double the width of it normally being. And there you go. So it's still not visible that well. In person, you see it much better than on camera here, but it just adds that nice grounding level for that apple. Now here's something I rarely ever do. So this kit comes with some twine, and I wanted to bundle it up. I see people do it, and I thought it's kind of fun, and so I wanted to try it. So I'm going to bring in some, what are they called? Little zots. They're double-sided sticky things. Now, I must not have used them in a long time, because this was not sticky. You can almost tell by the color that has been exposed to air for too long. And I'm pretty sure the box was closed, but so yeah, I'm just testing that. That's not sticky at all. So we'll bring in another one and bundle that back up again. So the dot is kind of fun, because you can just bundle those ends to the center and then glue it down so they're all nice and stuck. And then I will put that underneath. Ideally, I should not have glued down the center sentiment yet, because I would have been better to just had everything ready and then glued down. But it was able to lift off. If it ripped the paper, no one's going to see it anyways, because I'm going to glue it back down anyways. And now we'll just glue this to a card base. So all of my cards today will be measured 5.5 by 4 1/4, so it's an A2 size card, but the layers will be 1/4 inch smaller. So each colored background will be measuring 5 1/4 by 4 inches. So right here, we'll start snipping the pink, and that's 5 1/4 by 4 inches. So I personally like having the white border. I think it looks really sharp. It's almost like a picture frame that you're creating. You don't have to. You can use the whole card if you would like. If you have lots of cardstock, you can actually use these as your card bases. So if I had a lot of this color and I was fine using a whole card base, I would just cut these in the kit right in half and then fold it. And then you don't need to worry about all the different layers. But I like to make sure I have enough, so I cut them into 4 pieces. Usually I'll have 2 to 3, and then the other one's used for scraps like die cutting. So just to make things a little differently, we're going to take 2 pieces of pattern paper from this card kit, and I'm just going to make this nice little diagonal line with one. We'll bring in some Love from Lizi peel-offs. You see them on the left here. That is also a bundle that is part of this release, and it comes with a green, white, pink and orange, and the white and the orange have a gold lining on them. So it's actually quite pretty. You can kind of see it on the really skinny ones. It looks almost gold. That's because the edges are gold. So for this card, we're going to use the sentiment Squeeze the Day. And once again, this is a piece of scrap cardstock. It looks like I had at one point cut a rectangle with a die. And so I'm going to use it. So definitely use your scraps. You don't always need to cut a new piece of paper. You can always work with what you have. And of course, you can always trim it down if you find that it's just not the right size. So that's what I did. I started with a big one and then kind of gauged if I want to make it smaller or not. So there we go. So before I glue down my triangle, I'm going to bring in this magenta. It's like a very metallic pink, very magenta, I think that's the right word of saying it. And we'll just bring that, the biggest one, along the edges. And I like to do this whenever there is a transition between two pattern papers, especially if they're both really busy, because it creates that stop line, like a horizon almost. Of course, it's not a horizon; it's on the edge. But maybe if you're laying on your side, the horizon is crooked. But that's why I like to do that. And it works quite nice. You can do that with all of them from Lizi's peel-offs. You have the pinstripes, the stripes, and they have those little wavy ones too, which kind of is fun too. And there we go. And that pink matches really nicely with that watercolored background of the larger piece. Let's bring out those ephemeras one more time, and we're going to start bundling this up. So here's an example of where I think these strips are a little bit too wide. I was fine because the card base the pink cardstock is quite thick, but I did notice it does, when it starts to dry, to pull a bit because those white strips are quite large. So if you put too much glue on that, it will saturate the paper in one spot, which is what's causing that curl. Just keep that in mind. It's not wrong. When you glue everything down, it should be fine. But if you're using lighter white paper, it could even pull your card base as well. So let's pull all these little fruits. I love these little clusters of fruit. And then I'm going to also put the cherries on top. And that's just because I find that the cluster of fruit and the strawberry, the transition was just a little too harsh. Because you have clusters and all of a sudden there's this big strawberry. So I'm going to lay that cherry there just to kind of break that, the transition line where the two meet. We'll start off with adding the pear to the background just to kind of make that dimension of clusters of fruit. And then we'll just glue all the necessary pieces to the sentiment. And then what we can do after that is add our layers of scrap cardstock or foam squares to the edges so that everything is nice and flush. So what I'm trying to do is just make sure that your sentiment is constantly aligned every time you glue something down, because you don't want to have it crooked, glue it down, and then realize that when you go to actually center it, everything is off. Essentially, what I'm trying to do is make sure that I'm hugging the sentiment as best as I can. And so I'm using the embellishment grooves to kind of accentuate that sentiment. So there we go. I've already put all the little pieces of scrap cardstock. That's what those little white strips were on all the edges. And then we'll glue this right down. That's looking at these fruit. I love playing with these fruit ephemera. They're quite nice. There we go. And then we'll just tie in that cherry. If you wanted to, you could put a little piece of scrap cardstock on the leaf so that it's not sagging, but I'm not too worried about it. I don't think it's going to snag and rip off, but it's if you're worried about it, definitely do it. It would not be too hard. And then we'll bring in those pink peel-offs again just to tie in with the other one, and we'll do the top and the bottom. And since we already have everything glued down, we can just snip these little strips So we're not using a fresh one. We can continue on with where we left off and just kind of tuck. If you don't glue your ephemera right to the edge, I never do, because a lot of times I forget I want to do more, or I don't think about it until later. So if you don't glue right to the edge, you can easily just lift it and tuck. And so that's what I'm going to do, is just tuck that right under there and smooth it out. There you go. So now we got a little bit of pink peel-offs or magenta peel-offs on the top and bottom, just to finish off that center, or the sentiment. Okay, so now let's bring our card base in. No, now we're going to bring in the stars. I forgot about these. These are little translucent stars. I will say it is hard to see them when I was on camera. I had to keep pulling them to my face so I can see. My eyes are just not that good on these, especially if you are to see my studio, if you can call it a studio. I have these big lights, and so they're quite bright, and so I was trying to look at these little stars, and all I could see is this glitter in my face. So you just need to move it to the side, just not a light, if you get the right angle. But that's why I kept coming off camera, if you're wondering. Now, these are the peel-offs that come in the card kit. I thought it'd be kind of fun to add a little bit of color to the clusters, kind of making just this fun little tropical fruit salad with all these fruits and little embellishments. And because the stars are so clear, I figured that let's add some that you can actually see a lot easier. I like the clear ones personally, because they add something without attracting your eye too much. It's like, you know, when you look at something, you're like, oh, there's this. Oh, and you keep looking, you keep seeing more. That's why I like those stars, or any of those translucent ones. It's kind of fun. Now we're putting the card together. I'm gonna put it on the card base, and this is finishing off card number 2. If you haven't seen other videos of this collection, go check out Love from Lizi's YouTube channel. There are a lot of examples, and their design team is always posting videos of the newest kit releases, and you'll get a lot of inspiration. I will be posting on Love from Lizi's channel on the 12th of June. I have some fun projects that I'm going to be showing, and it's going to be using the other elements of the card kit. So definitely check out Love from Lizi's YouTube channel. It will be in the description link below, and catch me with my video there. Okay, so for this one, I did use the circle die from the card kit, but then I brought in another die, a nesting circle die, just to create a matte layer. If you don't have a circle nesting die, you could glue it down to your purple cardstock and then carefully create a circle following the edge. It probably won't be perfect, but be good enough. Or you can just create a square or a rectangle. But I just thought the circle would look kind of nice here. Now, let's bring out the ephemera. This card is definitely melon inspired, so we're looking for those fruit, or we're looking, not fruit, yes, we're looking for fruit, we're looking for melons. We're looking for watermelons, and I think the raspberry is perfect for this because it has that green and red, and it's just making my mouth water for like a spring salad of like a fruit salad of raspberries and melons. Oh my goodness. Maybe some mint. I don't think those are mint leaves, but I think mint would be fantastic in this salad that I'm creating in my head right now. Let's bring out those green metallic peel-offs. This is part of a bundle that is not part of the kit, but you can add it to your bundle. And we'll just tape that right to the edge and then flip over the sides that are overhanging. That's a little bit easier. And of course, if anything's really off, you can just snip those off. Then we'll glue that down. This is just a simple little banner. You could use the pattern papers if you wanted to. I decided to use the pink because it really reminded me of the watermelon. The pattern paper is more watercolor inspired, and I didn't want to also bring in more patterns to distract because, first of all, that green cardstock, one of my favorites. I love that color. Love it so much. So much so that I kind of kick myself for not cutting the back of it so I have more of it, but that's okay. And what was I talking about? I got distracted by how much I love that green cardstock. All right, I think we were talking about not distracting. So green cardstock, beautiful. That pattern paper in the background, really beautiful on that green. And then the embellishments, everything is just it's just pleasing my eye. And so let's keep it simple by just using the plain pink cardstock. That was a long-winded way of saying it, but I really needed you to understand how much I love this card by explaining everything. But definitely that green cardstock color is it's so beautiful. It's a shame that I'm hiding so much of it. Okay, so I'm going to keep this simple. I know when a card is perfect for me because I don't need to keep adding to it. I look at that and I'm just like, my eye is so happy. If you ever get that feeling, stop, right? Because your body's telling you this is perfect. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. As long as you think it's perfect, that's all that matters. And that's it. And I think that's my favorite one. So if that's in the thumbnail everywhere, that's because it's my favorite. Okay, let's go on to the fourth card. This is now using the purple cardstock. So we've been using that purple for all of our sentiment layers. And now we're going to use it as our card base. And then I'm going to bring in that scrap. So we did the triangle on the other side for card number 2. We're going to use the scrap and use it on the other side for card number 4. Let's use up those scraps as best we can. For the sentiment, we're going to use have a perfect day. Once again, it's a nice pun. I'm hoping I did not use all of my pairs in the previous cards. I'm pretty sure when I was making this that I still had one large one left. And I can see it right there. There we go. So we still had one. I think there's a cluster as well. But as long as we have one, then the sentiment is okay. It would be kind of silly to have a perfect day sentiment with no pair on the card. I will say I would have brought out the stamp set because there is a pair on the stamp set and I would have put it somewhere. Maybe heat emboss it in the background on the purple. That would look quite nice actually. If we heat set the whole background with white fruit or pears. Make your own background. Definitely a great idea. You can also do, I was thinking white, but you can also do it clear embossing, so then it's more like a watermark. Since we are using purple, let's change it up and have yellow in the background. I think yellow and purple are a very complementary color. I think scientifically that is true as well. I think they are meant to be together, so I'm going to match this. And once again, this is a piece of scrap cardstock that I had in my stash, and I decided, let's see if we can fill it up. And it's smart because a lot of these ephemera are clusters, and so now I can put a cluster of fruit down, and it's following that whole sentiment section. So I think that's quite awesome. And now what I'm doing is, once again, putting down all of the fruit just on the sentiment banner so that I can make sure when I glue it all down, everything is in position. If you remember earlier in card 1, I believe, when I mentioned let's add some height to the ephemera before you glue it down, this is what I'm referring to. See how that shadow or the cherry makes a huge difference? You can really tell that they are not together. Of course, the cherries are unproportionately bigger than the fruit in the front. Now it looks like a little mini fruit. Regardless, it looks much better than being on top. And then we'll just put all the little pieces on the back so everything is nice and flush. And let's glue that down. I'm going to keep this one also very simple. I think it looks quite nice. I don't think we need to add any more embellishments, but you can. In this card kit, there are those little clay embellishments. They like a little fruit. Those would look really nice if you start clustering them around the fruit ephemera as well. But I'm going to save those for another project. So that's why I'm not using them. Let's glue this down. Once again, this is measuring 5¼ by 4 inches, leaving that nice white border. And there you go. There is the 4th card. Okay, so here are the 4 cards that we created today. We got the one in the yellow, we have the one in the pink, and then there is the green one, which is my absolute favorite. And then we have the one we just created in the purple. I do hope you enjoyed this. This has been a lot of fun creating. Let's just make this nice and neat. This has been a lot of fun creating these fruit-inspired cards using some fun fruit puns from the stamp set that's part of this card kit. Everything is in the description box below, so definitely check it out if you're interested in this card kit. This is the June 2026 from Love from Lizi's. There are also a lot of other bundles and add-ons that you can get that are released in June, so check out the whole release and see what you like and build your own custom a la carte creation. And let me know what you think of these cards. Which one do you like the best? Have you got this kit yourself? And let me know what you're creating with it. So until the next time, have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye.